Howdy, disco citizens. It is Madam Onça, hardest working woman in show business. And I am delighted to be here with you tonight for some tarot talk in the Tower Times. What do we like to do during this time? We like to do a little bit of teaching on the subject of cards because I firmly believe that tarot is a fun and empowering historic way to hold a mirror to what's going on in your life and perhaps learn something about yourself and the world. So we like to do some of that. I usually read some cards for folks as well, and we generally yuck it up and have a good time. So that's pretty much my plan. We'll yuck it up a bit and learn some things. So if you don't already know me, my name is Madam Onça, and I am the artist and co-author of the World Spirit Tarot, which, hey, look, here's the box. There it is. Boom. World Spirit Tarot. I made that. And I continue to work on that because the tarot is an evolving art form, and my relationship with my deck, it continues to evolve over time as artistic choices get made to reflect the times. So I made it then, and I'm still working on it again. Speaking of which, I have a new shipment. As long as it's not jammed in the Suez Canal right now, I have a shipment of 1,000 decks on their way to me right now. So if you have ordered a deck from me, hopefully to be soon off the boat. Stay tuned. What else is going on? There's a lot going on in the world today. If you're a person of the gardening persuasion, I was taking the advice of the sage artist, author, and witchy elder Byron Ballard today. She was in her garden doing a live stream telling folks that according to traditional Appalachian hedgecraft, if you want to call it that, this is the time to put in your above ground crops. If you are trying to, grow spinach and things that grow up above the ground, now is the time to do that because it is a waxing moon. Who knew? I can neither confirm nor deny that from my own experience, but I ran out there today to put in some things just to do what my elders said, because Byron has been growing things probably longer than I have been alive. So she might know. She said, interestingly, also, for those of you that are metaphorically minded, that you do crops that grow above the ground prior to the full moon, and then crops that grow below the ground, your root crops, get put in next week after that. So that's when we should run out and start another batch of beets and so forth. So it is always an adventure in learning new and very old things over here at Awesome Town. So again, I'm Madam Onça. If you're just joining us tonight, I have as my lovely operator in the background, I have Corporal Clamwell is over here helping to make sure that I can see some of your comments and generally that I can be heard and seen. Yes. Oh, and I wanted to take a few moments also to thank all the folks, you who are gracious enough to be here week after week. Today we are doing the sevens. That tells me that this is our 7th week of rocking with the cards. And we will keep going as long as it seems like a good idea, as long as folks are enthusiastic, as long as folks want the information. So thank you for showing up and being fun and chatty in the comments. Feel free to say things. Carmel likes to relay the messages to me. Also, I wanted to thank Pobo Gabobo for building my the lovely credits. Sako Toomey, the wonderful, also known as the wonderful author Cass Voigt, helped me to get started with that. And then Paulo has helped me to keep them updated with the names of my patrons and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing what he can do with that theater degree. Hello, BLC Blondie. Thanks so much for being here. Just doing the chat part. So anyone who is familiar with Nat 21 Adventures, of course, here you are on their channel. They are gracious enough to let me pop on into the studio once a week and do this with you. If you could see the carnage of tentacles around me, Carmel's eyes are wide. I basically had to elbow my way through bananas and demons. And there's literally a box at my feet marked orcs that I had to sort of nudge out of the way in order to find some space in front of the camera tonight. So thanks, Nat 21 Adventures, for providing not only a space, some bandwidth in the internets, and a lovely community to connect with, but also for creating such an incredibly novel setting for me to try to do my work. Yes, there were a lot. Yeah, so many tentacles for you. So one of these days, I'm going to try to actually read all the cards with these on my fingers. Be like, and you get a tentacle, and you get a tentacle. In fact, when our friends, the cephalopods, get to the part where they're doing some sort of cartomancy somewhere in their inevitable evolution, science fiction wise, I'm curious to know what their cards will look like, because they'll have to work with these sticky, grabby fingers that they have. Hey, look, Hectocotylus. When an octopus pulls off a tentacle and throws it at you, it means they like you. That's actually science.
I feel so validated.
Right? It's newsflash. The Hectocotylus is actually also a sex organ. So they're like, I gave you the part that you might find useful later, lady. Welcome to some tarot. So so today we're going to work on the sevens. As always, I have my own deck, World Spirit Tarot. I also have the Rider-Waite-Smith, which, while not the first tarot deck by any means, it came to us many hundreds of years in the life of tarot, but it is certainly one of the most recognized of this century. And I have the Gummy Bear Tarot as well. So if you were thinking you might want to get a reading later, folks, those are your immediate options. Or tentacles. We can just do some sort of tentacle-mancy and make patterns. Oh, you should see. Apatia's mom is very excited about that. Calamari readings. I love it. Right? So we're going to talk a wee bit about the sevens. So in the tarot, when seven cards come up, they tend to refer to a period of introspection or evaluation. If you were to say across the board, all sevens are cards of evaluating where you are in the information that is imparted by that particular suit. So if you're talking about cups, again, that is the arena, describes in general the arena of your life that is about emotion and connectivity. Well, it's about evaluating where you are with that. If it comes up relative to wands, which is passion and drive and ambition and the old bucket list, it's about evaluating. So across the board, we find ourselves, there's a quality of, let's say, introspection. You may be looking out at your life and what your choices have wrought, but in all ways, when the sevens come up, it's always about considering your choices. And the old song, is that all there is? Is that all there is to this suit and the consequences of my choices? Then let's keep dancing. So these cards ask you to look in. My teacher's teacher used to call them vortex cards, which is to say that, you went along, you learned things, you got to the 4. It was a sort of a plateau of accomplishment. You were feeling good. Then the 5 kicked your butt with some unexpected, scorpion under the table. The 6, you relay the table. Now you are wiser. Now you are more learned. The 7 says, but perhaps there is yet more that you don't know. So sevens, the vortex. We're going to bring up our snazzy card cam over here. Boop. So here's our sevens all laid out. Incidentally, for anybody who is a tarot scholar stickler type, how to say, there is a convention that when you lay the cards out, that it goes wands first. I think it's wands, cups, swords, and pentacles, perhaps. That came to us over time. That is not how I chose to lay them out here, but I would be doing you a disservice to not mention it, so that you may, should you notice this convention in other books. So let us start with our friend over here, the 7 of Cups. You will see here's a person. They appear to be comfortably daydreaming, either in the sun, or they are perhaps daydreaming in the light of their own imagination. They are surrounded by, by the way, StreamYard is doing its own thing. We are not in control here. It's like there's a ghost in the machine. We see here he's surrounded by the sort of, what's the word? His brain is filled with spectacle and wondering. And then you see also with him the dog asleep. This, incidentally, is a picture of my dad. It's very autobiographical. This card is sometimes called dreaming or daydreaming. And totally as a coincidence, I made this card of and about my dad. But I hadn't even considered that at the end of his life, he had released an album of music called The Dreamer Sails Today. Literally, my dad. The tarot, it's so funny. It makes puns. at you. So we see here this person, they are looking into the realm of sort of emotion, connection, dream, inspiration, vision, and they are considering all of the best and the worst things. Whatever deck you might have in front of you, if it's traditional at all, you will find yourself, there's like money, there's mythic creatures, there's monsters, there's pleasure and danger are all sort of suggested in the art according to the artistic proclivities of the person who made it. This card suggests that you are in a time in your life when it would behoove you to look outside the box that you're in. It behooves you to consider broadening your parameters. Like, what if you did just throw everything away and go live in a boat? What if you did go against the grain of your HOA and become a turkey farmer? What would the consequences be? Do you want to live with those consequences? It asks you to think big and think weird. And because you can always scale back to, well, maybe I just want to paint the living room instead of, join an alpaca train. But this card encourages you to think of all the options. So it's really about it's really about thinking outside the box, whatever that is for you. And it's profoundly challenging. This card asks you to dare to imagine a life that you didn't know you could even have. So it's, again, you can make whatever sort of close to the chest or conservative choices you want, but this card asks you to think about the big unexpected possibilities. So beautiful card. And incidentally, in the imagery, the dog just came to me in the making of the art, but I think of it in a way as a bit of a commentary on the dilemmas, once again, that humans get ourselves in by being such complex beings. Here, he is in his revelry and he's thinking of all the things, fairies and poison and monsters and everything. The dog in its revelry is thinking, ball. I'm with my person. I'm near my ball. My needs are not that complicated. So there's something very homey about this card as well. So there we see evaluation in the realm of possibility. Now we come over to the Seven of Swords. I love this card because I am that kind of a Gemini. Swords, intellect, decision making. Do you mind putting it on 2, Cameron, if the StreamYard will permit? Hey, so this one is about evaluating decisions. It is about evaluating your words. It is about evaluating your boundaries. It is about evaluating your end goal. So you see in this image, there's a person. They're up to something. Are they stowing swords? Are they stealing swords? There's some sort of a black ship on the horizon. There's this sort of treacherous rocks in a whirlpool. There's a lot being said in this image about the need to move with caution and deliberation. Everything about this figure is very stealthy. So this card comes up to say, what is it you're trying to accomplish? What means are you willing to use to get it? At its best, this card talks about tact, diplomacy, nuanced navigation of communication and situation. At its sort of more extreme application, it can be literally about manipulation, stealth. It could go all the way to gaslighting, like creating a false sense of environment for someone. So this card does not, just like this other 7, actually, just like 7 of Cups, doesn't pass ethical judgments for you about whether you're thinking about, monsters or merriment. It just encourages you to think big. This card also says, without judgment, what do you need to do? What are you trying to do? What are you willing to do it? What kind of person are you in this moment? Diplomacy and stealth, tact and manipulation are all part of the same spectrum of the powers that are described for us metaphorically by swords. It is, again, air, communication, boundaries, intellect, decision-making. So this card very much says, who are you? What are you doing? Why? And what are you willing to do it? Are you willing to live with those consequences? I love this card because I feel that for a thinking person, so much of our lives are spent in that space. What my mother used to say, some people have pretty babies. Some people have homely babies. But nobody wants you to say, oh, what a homely baby. But you can say, what an interesting child. That is honest, and it is not unnecessarily cruel. That goofy looking baby will probably turn into a perfectly whatever larger human. It's all about finding a way to be kind and present in the moment if your goal is to make the new mom feel good about what she's doing, for example. So now we're gonna scooch on over. Is this sometimes known as people who live outside the system with their wits? Yes, I'm totally gonna say that. I think that's maybe why this card appeals to me so much, because if you function if you function as an entrepreneur, if you function as a person who is predisposed to question authority, all of those things, anything where you are choosing to define your own parameters and your own goals, it's very much a card of, it's all of these cards are really about like the quest. This card is very much about the quest to be self-defining in your values, let's say. Whereas the cups is about being self-defining in how you choose to be emotionally connective in the world. So yes, let's say yes. Now we're going to jump over to the wands. Speaking of values, this card, you can see this person, perhaps they seem to be maybe behind a wall or some sort of boundary. In my mind, what I hear with this card is Jean-Luc Picard saying, the line must be drawn here. So this is the card to me of the activist or the person, the rabble rouser, the person willing to take action. Wands, ambition, fire, passion, big picture. Sevens, evaluation. Is the system working? Am I supportive of it? Do I stand with it or against it? This is very much a card of making choices about how you want to spend the currency of your passion and where you're willing to compromise and where you are not willing to compromise anymore. So very much a card of, again, self-determining values as far as that goes. Now this card, I love this card. Look at that guy. This card, Seven of Pentacles. Pentacles is practical stuff. So money, security, health, hit points, gold coins, that kind of stuff. So once we find resources and an evaluation of how you might want to maintain them or how you might want to spend them, how you might want to utilize or protect them. This is literally me in the garden today going, did I plant this? Is this from last year? Is this a weed? What is happening here? Well, when did Byron say to plant things? So very much a card of evaluation and resources. I love this card. Like the art actually just speaks to me because there's a person, there's some sort of satyr and they're out in their garden with their buddy, the goat, and everything is sort of beautiful and magical looking. Love it. I hope that that's our pumpkin patch this year. So this card tends to come up when it's the card of permaculture, I like to say. So it's very much a card of figuring out how to make systems work. This really is this is the card of saying, I put in this work, I created this crop, I gathered these resources, I planted this garden, I built this community. Then you stop, having gone through all the other things you have, you come here at the 7 and go, but how's it working though? Does it need some nitrogen fixed in the soil? Do we have some like systemic bullshit we need to, root out and address? Does this place need a whole lot more whimsy in order to be a whole lot more fun? Like what is needed in order to make the most of what I have built? Or is it time to tear it all down and I learned something about when to plant or how to build community or whatever? So it's a cold hard evaluation. You'll see when I put out the 100-year-old version of the same images, Pamela Coleman Smith, her image is very similar, guy in a garden leaning on a hoe, but he looks much more cynical about the outcome. I really wanted to bring a same quality, but a little bit more, he looks more pleasantly engaged, let's say. If you have questions about any of these things, feel free to weigh in the chat. I appreciate that. I'll put out the historic cards in just a sec. Oh, yes. So, a little voice said, well, what is the major arcana card that is the 7? Hold, please. I didn't actually pull it out, so I'm going to see if I can find it in the book and hold it up for you. As I mentioned last week, sometimes the parallels between the major arcana card of that number and this can be useful. Last week we had, for 6s, we had the Lovers. Now we have the Chariot. See if you can, I guess I put it over here, huh? Can you sort of see? We have a very spiffed up man. Where'd it go? How can you get that stuff in motion? Like, he is in the driveway with his foot on the gas and his foot on the brake, and he's waiting to find out which thing it is. Are we engaging? Are we waiting? Are we waiting for a moment? Is it time to charge off? So the evaluation that is implicit in that 7 is really about sort of when and how to engage. Okay, so here's these. Yeah, thanks, Blondie. So we have got, you see, there's our, here's our traditional 7. Once again, you see he's sort of sneaking off. There's a sense of, there's some tense, a feeling of having maybe snuck into an encampment. Here, there's that embattled quality that the 7 has with the wands.
They're sneaking off the side of the...
Okay, thank you. Absolutely. Boop. They're migrating. Good thing I have somebody with their eyes on the screen. Boop. I'm still creeping over. Okay. 7s, this is where you evaluate your position on the table. Okay, so you see here, again, he has that very sort of like embattled, like, it's not a person standing looking at their stuff. It is a person who's very much engaged in defining or defending them. Here we see this card of dreams, visions. The makers of this deck, the Pamela Coleman Smith deck, the Rider-Waite deck, were very heavily mystically Catholic. So, you know, there's a lot of sort of apostle-y, angel-y, Blessed Virgin Mary vibe that goes on in a lot of these cards. And here we go. Here's the person rather dolefully looking at their crops going, oh. And I have read that historically that this piece of art particularly was intended to be a commentary on the English leaving the Irish to starve during the potato famine. So he's looking at the crops and going, what if they're blighted? What if we all die? What if we have to move to another country where we are treated very poorly for generations? What if? Okay, now here's the gummy bear version because they're totally adorable. So you can see, I mean, that is clearly the same image, just done with gummy bears. And 7 of Pentacles, same thing. Not quite as leggy, you'll notice. This guy here is really defined by his long lines. Gummy bears, not so much, what with not really having legs. Also, probably not running from the camp, having stolen these. But here, once again, is the figure sort of looking up at the fairy visions. So there we see a little bit about the 7s. All you really need to remember is that they are evaluative. They are your last chance to go, huh, is that what I meant to do? Is that what I want? Yeah. So from here, the next thing I'm happy to do, if anybody wants their cards read for them, I'm happy to do that for you. Otherwise, I will pull some cards and show you how it is done. But that means doing a little bit of shuffling. Again, I have to tell you, there's barely room here for me to maneuver. I'm sharing this desk with the beckoning demon and pile of cards. All right.
Somebody from Bambi Sirico?
Oh, great.
I don't know who that is.
So
Someone has raised their hand.
okay, so if you, I've got a little love in the PayPal or Venmo from Bambi, so I'm going to read some cards. All right. Again, these are quick readings as compared to an in-length, lengthy reading. I just want to wake the cards up. Every different deck sort of has its own way that it might want to be shuffled. Carmel bought a beautiful deck that, whether it's because she has petite hands or because of the quality of the paper or the quality of the art, something about that deck really wants to be sort of zhuzhed around as compared to being carefully and artfully.
Whoosh.
Yes, it's all about the zhuzh. Good luck spelling that. So there's some note here from Blondie. I changed grade levels at the end of last year, and this week I was asked how I felt about going back. What might the cards be feeling for me? Okay. Are you the same person as the person I think I'm reading for? Forgive me for asking, but people's Twitch names and their, PayPal information names may not be the same. I'm going to read cards for Bambi first, and if that's you, then we do it all at once. Otherwise, I'll read for Bambi, and then I'll read for you. Once I get these cards woken up. This is just an extended zhuzh.
That's right.
Great. Okay. Well, fantastic. Let us find out what we can for you. Thanks so much for being here. So do me a favor, friend. Take a big breath in. Okay. Just hold your question in your mind. Oh, the cards are fizzy. Okay. Let's see what we have there. The Eight of Wands, the Magician, and the Ace of Wands. So I'm going to say off the top of my head that looks auspicious. The Magician card is very much a card of moving into mastery, being able to handle a lot of different things at once, of the skills that you've already developed being available to you now to be repurposed as needed. The Ace, of course, is a card of very much of beginnings. It sounds like a new project. It is a way of declaring that you are stepping through into a new feisty, fiery, passionate time. And the Eight, when this card comes up, it usually suggests things want to happen fast, like a rapid movement. So you may find yourself transitioning from the known to the unknown very quickly. You may find yourself moving from uncertainty into really feeling deeply nestled in your groove very quickly. I would say these cards are extremely positive. It's like really the tarot is yelling at you with two big thumbs up emojis that it could work out. I will say, again, the Eight suggests things want to happen quickly. And the Magician card, he is about the process. The Magician gets to be that way because of putting in the 10,000 hours. But, you're not new to teaching. It's just a matter of finding a new way to use the skills that you have already built. So I'm going to say it looks great. Yeah, good. I'm awfully glad that I've got good stuff to say. Thanks. All right. Cool beans. All right. Now, so I'm going to pull some cards for myself now, and I'm going to use a little bitty deck. I'm going to use my little gummy bear deck. In this case, strictly because more of it fits on the page at a time. I can fit more than 3.5 cards in the frame, but I do have to do a little zhuzh. Definitely not new. Or I'll just throw those in the ground. Okay. Hey, little tarot cards. It is spring, by the way. So if you're thinking all your springtime, emerging, it's like we have all been in a weird pandemic chrysalis of some form for a year. Maybe now we all get to emerge from that. I'm going to spread the cards out. Let's see if I can fit this whole one in here. Okay. So this is a simplified version of a seasonal springtime spread. If you have more space, then you can do more and pull more cards. But basically, I was thinking about the springtime. My question was really about how things might be unfolding for us. And as I pulled cards, I was thinking locationally. That means that rather than saying, hey, all you cards, what do you have to say if we put you all together? In this case, I'm saying this card is the seed, this card is the root, this card is the plant, this card stands for the bloom. So they're in essence, they're describing a time frame. It's not a, this week, next week, the week after that, and the week after that, but it is describing sort of stages in a process. So I was like, all right, tell me about springtime. Tell me about, of course, these are directed for me. So there's my seed. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, the old tower. This guy's been showing up a bit lately. Hey, tower. So we've got seed. We've got sprout. We've got plant. And we've got bloom. So with the little gummy hand. Right? I know. So the mystical gummy gods. So cute. And you can see right here, like the tower card. Most folks are not excited to get the tower card. It is slightly less menacing, however, when it's gummy bears falling off a cartoon tower. Now, if you've been with us for a few weeks, you may recall I actually had the tower come up maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, coming up for me and my family during the month of April. So this could be a coincidence. That situation may have gone into abeyance and not be a concern, or this may be reiterating the point. So as much as you want to go, ha, 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 this is when you're happy to say tarot cards don't mean anything. It is, you can bet, I'm going to be making a note of that fact. So I went, all right, tell me about this season. Tell me about how this is unfolding for me and for my family. So we see the seed, the kernel of that, like where am I coming from in my personal process right now. And you're welcome to jot this down if you're the sort of person who wants to keep track of these sort of things, learning how to build spreads. So here's the seed. The seed is the strength card. We have proven to be very resilient as a community through these uncertain times. I know that I personally have done an enormous amount of emotional work and sort of emotional heavy lifting, processing a lot of grief and a lot of change and a lot of trauma over the last year. Everything from like things that went all the way back to being a little kid. So the strength, I'm going to say that is me in the moment, having done a lot of work and having found myself to be able to come through this difficult time. So the squirrel that hid that acorn and just kept it polished up, that is me. I am the well-shined acorn. So, then we come from there to the sprout. Well, the sprout, here we have the tower card. The tower card typically comes up to describe challenging changes of perspective, shall we say. Sometimes this card is traditionally known as the lightning struck tower. And if you're just joining us, hi, my name is Madame Onça. I am a tarot person, reader, artist, author, and this is my entirely not sarcastic, not goofy, gamey thing here on Twitch. I know that most of what you see on here is games. Interestingly, tarot has its roots in history as a game. It was the game tool of its time. It just evolved into having this additional layer of meaning. So we find ourselves now doing game things and making a game out of learning about ourselves. So, hi. So we get the tower card comes up to suggest that strong as I am, there may be some stuff coming up the pipe that could be difficult to deal with as the season unfolds. Like I said, we had that card come up before, so could be true. I'll definitely make a note of it. Or it might, if there is nothing concrete, if it's not a matter of, the roof catches on fire, the car crashes, the fox gets all the chickens. If it's not a concrete thing, the tarot is a language of metaphor. It's like interpreting your dreams, right? So it can also just be telling me that there is, as much work as I've done, there's another layer that I get to peel back and go, oh, that's what that horrible smell was. There was something rotten in Denmark the whole time. So the tower suggests that there's some work up the pipe for me. We go from seed to sprout to plant. So this is the part that is successfully coming up above the ground. And the Ace of Pentacles is an awesome card with its little gummy hands. Aces, new beginnings, excitement, new opportunities. Again, this is in the realm of practical things. It's your spell slots, your hit points, your gold coins, your sense of security. So this card suggests some new beginnings and building there in the area of projects and security. Also, hopefully, everyone's staying in good health as we begin to move out into the world. And then the bloom, we find ourselves here with that Seven of Pentacles, which we have done some talking about. This is that card that makes you go, all right, this is the work that I did. How am I feeling about it? Is this what I meant to grow? Did I think I was growing vanilla ice cream cones and they turned out to be potatoes? Or vice versa. So the sevens come up to be evaluative. So I'm looking at this for myself. I can say, well, I'm in a good place to learn whatever it is that might be coming around for me this spring. That is a modified springtime reading. You can do an extended version where off the plant, off that third card, it can branch out in several different directions and go, tell me more about this area of life. I could point this camera. Tell me more about this aspect of my life. Tell me more about this aspect of my life. Tell me more about this aspect of my life. And the plant can branch off into different sort of blooms that are the lessons that you might carry away, or the practical components that might remain with you once the learning experience has moved through you. So if you have questions about any of that, let me know. Again, I'm so grateful to everybody who showed up to hang out, learn a little bit, do some chat about tarot things, be amused by my gummy cards. How are we on time, Clamwell?
We are at 20 minutes to 9.
Oh, great. Okay.
Way ahead of schedule.
We are. So I've got some time to read some more cards for folks if you want, or I can continue to share some information about them. Both of those things are good for me. Oops. Gravity. Perhaps I won't use those cards. No, that's fine. Actually, I was going to switch over to my Rider-Waite deck. So I mentioned in a previous adventure, this particular deck, this traditional deck is about 100 years old. This particular deck is maybe 50, 60 years old. Somebody, a funny thing that happens when you are a public or semi-public figure, somebody somewhere said, hey, I got this tarot deck on Haight Street in the 60s. I don't read cards anymore. It's not really my thing, but you seem like a person. You there, semi-public figure who does tarot things. They mailed it to me. Whoever you are, thank you so much. I've had the same thing happen with belly dance stuff. Uh-oh, can you still see me? My wow, my computer did something really weird. I've had the same thing happen with belly dance stuff. Because I used to travel, teach, and perform in that capacity primarily, and I would end up places, and some little old lady, who used to dance in the 50s or the 70s would find me and give me all of her old costuming. Be like, I don't need this stuff anymore, but I just wanted to get used. I have some beautiful, some strange, and some really god-awful pieces of classic belly dance stuff came to me because somebody, was nice enough to reach out and say, you there, you look like you might care about this crazy stuff. So that's how this deck came to me. And someday maybe I'll show up in some of my crazy polyester costumes that the ladies of the days of yore gave me. All right. Okay, so let's do a bit more with the cards. Clamwell, I have to tell you. Yes, one lady's trash. Absolutely. Is another person's treasure. One person's hand-me-downs is another person's hand up. Also,
What are you telling me?
I was telling you that because of the game, anybody here who happens to be watching who might be a fan of Nat 21 Adventures and saw either the side quest on Sunday, which was all about Hypatia's parents, or any of the wacky Hypatia's family-related antics from last night, our youngest person who lives here, Zip Flash, I picked them up today. They got in the car and said, Shakespeare did a great job of being the worst. They were really perfect. And I was like, that's what you were thinking about while you're standing here waiting to get picked up? hippie, darling. Yes, I was like, you have the, you know how hard it is to get the seal of approval from a 14-year-old? Wonderful people. Like I said, right, Zolani? Like I said, is it bad that I want to be them considering how terrible they are? They're like, it's like if, I don't know, it's kind of like if Morticia and Gomez and, and Lovey and Thurston Howell, merged into some sort of like brutal, demonic money gougers. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing the third point there, but they're the best worst.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Right. Being awesome and highbrow doesn't keep her from having to, push a shovel over here in the trenches. She's helping to make the show happen. Yeah, they're really great. Really the best and the worst. I can.
We are the worst. We are the worst.
Right. Okay. So, funny thing is our family motto is "We're not the worst. We're not the worst," because being the best sounds like so much work. But in this case, you are the worst. They were really fantastic. As a person who's chronically lowbrow, just I hope that at some point we get to cosplay and be in the same place. But I'm gonna have to go sit in the peanut gallery because between her and Shakespeare, I'm gonna be like, me and Eric, we're gonna go sit over there together and throw peanuts.
I mean, Thecla is just the Minotaur version.
It's true.
Of Nespira.
That's true.
I'm just saying.
Yes, well,
all of the NPCs are really horrible people.
Right? It's true. All right, so where were we? Tarot stuff. Again, anybody, it looks like we've got a few more people on board here. Hi there. Oh.
Don't tempt the fates.
Nat 21 stage show, right? It's almost as if we were all professional performers before this happened. I hope some of you caught the it was costuming with the crew today as the most of the cast was working on their wigs. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, it was. I think it was the best attended. It looked like the best attended Creating with the Crew ever, too. The numbers were really high. Like, there's a lot of people paying attention to that wig wisdom that y'all have. So getting their wigs ready for when we get to have the right, Solani? I just sit in the other room most of the time and hear see it come through the screen and hear the cackling come through the floor. All right, let's throw down some cards. Anybody out there would like to get your cards read? Let me know. I pulled some for me. I pulled some for Bambi. And I could do some for you, or I might throw some down on Clamwell here.
Oh, I was just thinking, what would I even ask about?
Right. Oh. Can you tell me how tarot evolved from a game to readings? Thank you, Bill. That's a great question. To a certain extent, that information is still evolving. Tarot has been, in broad terms, tarot in history as a divinatory art has been a woman's thing, and therefore is poorly documented. There was definitely a point in history where, sort of woman's things, midwifery and hedgecraft and all that kind of stuff became woman stuff, and science, and even people who were into magic had to develop some kind of magic that was very distinctly, not a woman thing. So women's history tends to be under-documented for all those reasons. There are really awesome scholars who are trying to figure that stuff out. Mary K. Greer is preeminent among them. I recommend very much, if you're interested in this sort of thing, she is your go-to woman. She has spent a lifetime digging up information and tracing the roots of tarot all the way back along the Silk Road to China. So she's written there's some great work about that. But what I think I know from what I've read from other people, mostly Mary Greer, is that tarot, as tarocchi, appears in Italy, I want to say 600 years ago, let's say, as a game. And it was literally a taking the trumps game, right? Because, of course, it has trump cards in it. And trump is a bastardization of the word triomphe, triumph, like l'Arc de Triomphe in France. So it started out as a parlor game, and and actually I have played tarot the game at Penzic, medieval reenactment events. People have tracked down tarot rules for when it was being played as a trump taking game, and somewhere along the way, it started picking up extra cards and started picking up extra information, and it continued to be a game on the one front, but it developed this whole secondary life. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being called tarocchi, and tarocchi, the game, mostly died off. It certainly fell out of fashion, and tarot, as a divinatory art, kept going. There are some distinct moments in history. It used to be, this could be any, knight card, any, what we would think of as a jack, right? It's some guy with a symbol of the thing sitting on a horse. There's nothing about that says, super mystical. There were some distinct moments in history where particular people who were interested in metaphysical things sat down with the cards and sort of gave them an extra injection of meaning, like an extra layer of meaning, and started figuring out things like, we're going to say that this card corresponds to Venus, and this card corresponds to these letters, these Hebrew letters in the Kabbalah. So a lot of brain power went into adding some of the layers that we now work with by people who took those things very seriously. But it is important to note that even though there's all this metaphysical, there are these layers that have been added, they are not original, unless you believe that the tarot came from Atlantis or something, in which case I am not the historian that you need. There are these other layers, but again, your grandmother can sit down, with her playing cards and read your cards without knowing a darn thing about Kabbalah, without knowing a darn thing about Vedic astrology. So yes, Mary K. Greer. Thank you for putting that up in the notes. So that is, I know, Bill, that doesn't give you a lot of solid points in history. There are much more nuanced speakers than I am that subject. But we know that tarot started as a game and became something extra. And there are other systems of cartomancy as well. Madame Lenormand is famous for having read cards for Josephine Bonaparte and having developed a whole, she had a whole other way of reading cards, totally different system. When she would actually have multiple decks on the table, there's a whole system now called Lenormand, which is actually named after her, even though it's not actually the system that she used, but they said, you know who knows a lot about cards? Madame Lenormand. So we'll do that. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds of systems out there that I have just spent my life studying this particular one. So yeah, thank you. That was a very good question. I hope I gave you some resources to move forward with. There's also a book that I have, which is The History of Playing Cards, which gets really deep into the nitty gritty of when cards appeared in Europe, who was publishing them, because Italians and like the politics between Russians and Italians and French and Brits, and whose troops had them and who was making wacky knockoffs and who needed to replace the Pope figure, because the Hierophant in the cards used to be called the Pope. Well, if you're a Protestant country in the middle of a war about that, you probably don't want the Pope in your deck anyway, right? You're like in the middle of a fight about papists. So like the Pope would be replaced by something else. So the evolution of it over time, in order to reflect the values, I imagine, thinking about it right now, I'm certain that there were probably some fantastically strange decks were made during like the Reign of Terror at a time when we're not doing kings and queens anymore. What are we going to put instead?
Christmas is canceled.
Right? It's going to fit that. Like I'm sure that there are some fascinating decks from that time, because again, it's a metaphorical language that gives you a window into how people were thinking at that moment in time. So thank you for asking. Okay.
You want to read my spring?
Yes, I'm sorry, I keep hitting everything with my knees. I'm like pulling a china shop. I can't sit still. So I'm going to pull cards for Clamwell, since she has asked.
That's me.
Clamwell. We're going to do the springtime. We'll do that 4.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Blue on them.
Yep. In the normal times, I like to let somebody handle the cards and pull their own cards, of course. Now, Clamwell and I cohabitate. So on the one hand, I could have her pull these cards, but she's pinned down over there under a bunch of computer equipment. And as she always says, living together through the pandemic, we swim in the same soup. We drink from the same coffee cups. I mean, we wash them first, but we're already sharing hats.
The same bathroom.
Yeah, we're sharing same hats, same wash machine. So I'm going to assume that I can pull these cards for you. What do we have? What's the spring fling for the Carmel thing? Oh, there we go. Seed. Sprout. Oh. Plant. Bloom. Okay. I have to tell you, 60-year-old cards have a different feeling, like the actual paper, because although they're very thick and glossy, they have this quality of time. It's just like holding a very old book.
And then we're at 5 minutes.
All right. The Queen of Wands is the seed. The 4 is your sprout. Oh boy, there's your plant. And there is your bloom.
I keep getting these cards.
So, Yeah, you perhaps could not hear it, but off-screen operator, when I flipped over one of these cards, said, that bitch. Which is to say, it drives home the point that you may develop a long-term relationship with some of these images. You'll be like, oh, yes, it's that thing that always happens. Right? The thing that always happens. If you're just joining us now, I'm Madame Onça, and I am reading cards for folks who have asked and trying to explain the process in order to empower you to be able to do it for yourself, because you don't have to believe in tarot, whatever that means. I mean, they're here. I believe that they're physically on this table. You don't have to believe in them for them to be a useful way to learn some stuff about yourself. For example, for our friend here, the seed, we're talking about spring, like sort of where is she coming from? Queen of Wands. So that describes a personality that is ambitious, charismatic, very into hats, can't keep the cat off her chair, is very driven, creates a lot of light, it has a lot of sort of a personal power and drive. In this case, she is just itching to get out of that chair, but she is busy doing her job as the queen. She has a sort of a big perspective and a big list of things to do in order to fulfill her potential as someone who is self-sovereign, ambitious, and not so bright, not so glaringly bright that no one can handle it, right? That is your Queen of Wands. And sunflowers, which we have like a million of that we just planted in the greenhouse. So that is the kernel. That is the person who is coming out of this winter. They are almost like a one of those like incandescent fireplace logs. It's like this compressed bunch of energy, and it's it looks like it doesn't look like a whole lot just sitting there wrapped in foil, but once you set that thing on fire, it's a lot. So there's all this compressed power. So there's the seed. Then we look at the sprout. That is the beginning of the process. The Four of Swords. We usually see swords as decision making and words. And the fours tend to be a bit of a static spot. It's a plateau. So it describes having gone through some turmoil, having gone through some reevaluation, having gone through some perhaps difficult decision making or reckoning. And the four describes taking a minute to sit with it before you move out into the world. So it's very much about sort of rest rehabilitation, as well as there's a quality of vigil in this card, you might say. Like I always think of it as this image looks a little sepulchral, as if you're looking at the person in their tomb, which is why in my version of this card, it is actually a person resting who's clearly alive and wearing green. But it does remind me of that sense of the night, having their, pulling their vigil the night before they get their knighthood. Spending their night in chapel perilous, as you would say in metaphysical terms. So here's our seed, compressed power, explosive, fiery potential. Here we have the sprout. It is the tentative. Is it time? Are we able to make choices and do things now? Is it don't get too excited because you're not sure what's happening. And some of the things you want to do are still totally boned by circumstances, but not everything, because then it would be the 10. So the 9, the plant that comes out in this sort of unwinding spiral of her springtime potential, we see the 9 is anxiety, sort of being caught up in the brain spiral of frustration and confusion around what is potential, like what is possible right now. This card comes up when we're having a hard time sleeping. Perhaps some of us are like power dreaming.
How very dare you notice that about me?
So this card very much comes up. It's typically a card that describes a lot of stress. I mean, you can see that this person is under a certain amount of stress. This is a card that describes continuing to work through it. But blessedly, the blossom that comes out of this spring, as there's this sort of unwinding of potential, we see here in this Two of Pentacles, that is the beginning of building something new, glorious, and circusy. This card is specifically, obviously, has hints of like jugglerdom or building something sustainable, but starting small. what a very springtime sort of thing to have. So this card comes up again. Pentacles is about resources. 2 is not very much to work with. So it's kind of the robbing Peter to pay Paul, but that's fine. Just put a little here, just put a little there. But then I moved it, but then now it's over here. I paid that off before it got weird, and everything is fine. We are succeeding in getting momentum to finally get, and then it becomes, you can see it's almost like a serpentine belt. So you can imagine they're not just standing in place being whimsical. They're generating power. They're getting that Mobius strip moving in order to build the perpetual motion machine that will finally propel them out of their house and back into a life of feeling creatively fulfilled. So
thank you.
That's what the cards have to say about that. Boy, am I glad it wasn't oops all towers. I hate having to be the harbinger of doom in metaphorical terms.
Especially since you're nearby.
Right.
Oops all towers for me is not good for you either.
Right. Yeah. Boy, I hope this is going to be the card of 3 months of her feeling well adjusted. No, it's fine. So I hope that is, obviously I'm reading cards for my friend, but I hope that the process of hearing how I talk it out is useful for you. Most tarot readers don't do that. They don't have a pedagogical approach. They tend to go, oh yeah, see what I see here is you've got some stuff going on and this is what it looks like. I really like to break it down and try to explain it. Partly it's how my brain works and how my learning process has worked over 20 years of learning about the cards, but it is also, I'm really committed to helping deconstruct the idea that every person has to have either a perfect memory or be some sort of superpowered psychic in order to work with tarot cards. Perfectly normal pedestrian people have been having fun and using the cards for a long time. It's just a matter of being able to sort of, get in around the edges and get comfortable. So there was what was the question? Oh, how is the King of Wands different than the Queen? Well, we've got time to talk about this. So gender in the tarot is, thank you very much, Blondie. Gender in the tarot is interesting. Of course, the tarot comes from a time when gender roles and gender, the power dynamic was enormous. Oh, by the way, today is the day of the year. This is relevant. Today is the day of the year where, because of the pay disparity in America between men and women, the pay gap, whatever men made, of course, you understand that these are like averaged over statistics, whatever men made over the 12 months of last year, women will have had to have worked until today to make the same amount of money that men made by January 1st. Today is that day. There was a whole thing about it on NPR. So somebody's stress eating now. Gender in the tarot is interesting in this way because while we still have struggles, clearly we're certainly in a very much different place with it than they were, 600 years ago in Italy, for example, or even 100 years ago in Great Britain when, this deck was made. The traditionally-ish, the difference is that the king was like, oh, well, he is the, sovereign of his domain, meaning out of the home. And the queen was, the sovereign of her domain in the home. Not only is that toxic and crazy, it's not even relevant to anything in our life experience. Like my mother worked, her mother worked, her mother worked. That notion that like women only do things at home. And if you do, that's totally fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't if that's your thing. But to put that out as like a unilateral cultural norm isn't accurate. And the cards, again, it's an evolving art form. It needs to reflect to meet the times. So that difference between the king and the queen has become less about like women's work and men's work and more about how, this is still a little loaded as far as gender stuff goes, but how you might process that information. For example, in some of the suits, when you're talking about like the sort of sovereignty, big picture and control that the king has, it might be more about how he works as an individual or as a sort of top-down leader, whereas the queen's role in the same capacity might be she still has all the information, she has the sovereignty, but she's more of a coalition builder. Like, I'm good at doing these things and getting everybody on board and getting buy-in instead of being top-down, for example. So this is the way that we have been trying over the last zillion years to pick out ways that we can let the king and the queen and the seeker and the Sybil, all of these different sort of the people cards, the face cards, the court cards, how we can let them have distinct and useful personality traits that aren't totally wrapped around the spindle of their chromosomes, or even of their gender identity, because it's like you could totally be, a Queen of Swords type and be a dude, Oh, hey, Reverend Tommy just finished up an amazing project. I hope I can get to arrive in Awesome Town by Saturday. That's great. Oh, that's so cool. So anybody just joining us, that's Reverend Tommy. He is absolutely a pillar of making this channel possible. He is always secretly helping to make things move up front and behind the scenes. So that's really great. Oh, thank you. I love that we have the hashtag toxic and crazy. So that's great. And I want to acknowledge, I see in the notes here that BLC Blondie was saying, the way that I teach is similar to the way that she teaches. So thank you for that positive reinforcement. Oh, and Zelani. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I am glad that it is useful. We try to have fun and, find a mix between being of service and entertaining. And, this is what we're doing with our night, right? This is my job tonight. So it's like we're trying to find a mix between making sure that it is fun for us and also fun for you. I am happy to read cards. This is your last call. We're slamming on the bar. Yes, I could definitely pull a few cards for you. I'm happy to read for anyone. Do you have a preference, Bill? Which deck? I've got the Gummy Bear deck. I've got my deck. And then I've got this traditional deck over here. You take your pick. You are invited to make a donation to the PayPal if you want to, because there's two of us sitting here making this happen tonight, or the Venmo. But if you're not in a position to do that, I totally understand the shape of the plague we're in.
Plug the other shows.
Oh, yeah. And again, Bill, do you have a preference? Which deck?
No preference.
No preference. Okay. Then I will use mine for I know it the best. I hope that some of you caught the All About Wigs show today. Was very charming. And then tomorrow, I believe Shakespeare has sonnets. Do we happen to have that? Okay. Shakespeare, I believe, is doing his making sonnets thing tomorrow at 10. Oh, there we go. 10:35. I have sat in on that. It's adorable. Oh, and then the Gothic Horror Gaming folks are doing their thing. I have heard nothing but amazing stuff about that. And their storytelling and their cosplay is on point. So please consider showing up for some Gothic Horror Gaming. And then Sunday, it is the last side quest that is going to be led by Paulo for quite a while because he is headed out on the road. After that, we have some guest folks stepping in to run different events. There will be the haiku wrap-up. I can't wait to see Romulus's aggravation that Eirik didn't get to be there for the hammer battle. So by all means, show up for that. And then on Monday, we have Glamour Hobo Bedtime Tales. Yes, if you want to hear more of the mellifluous sounds of Hypatia's mother tearing you a new one, reading you a story. So thank you. Good job. Oh, you caught some of the wig show today. Yeah, it was fun. I was in the greenhouse with a trapped cat, so I didn't catch as much of the wig show as I would have wanted to. Seeing the two mom and daughter character pairs discuss was great, right? I really enjoy watching the dynamics. Number one, I really enjoyed that this season, it wasn't a plan, but I really enjoyed that this season was so much about female characters. It's like there were male characters too, but it definitely passed the Bechdel test, which, is the test in art, whether the characters have anything, I don't know what the specific words are, but
necessary kissing, have things to say to each other, not about men.
Yes. So Alison Bechdel is a fantastic cartoonist. I was a big fan of her work back in the day. She had a cartoon called Dykes to Watch Out For, which basically summed up my entire life in the 90s. It was really adorable. And she was a, cutting edge thinker. In her way. The Bechdel test is named after her, and it is the test by which you determine whether art could stand if you took the male characters out. Is there anything of substance left? I would posit that if it's good art that's trying hard, it should. And it's been a real delight to watch this season unfold and have it be, there are male characters and they have agency and they have a lot to contribute, but there's still plenty of material without that. And that is something that I can be proud to get behind. Because I don't know if you know this about D&D, but the community is not famous for being, real affirming about stuff like that, in a Gamergate world. So look, good on you, everybody. It was awesome. Okay, Bill, what is Reverend Tommy saying? I'm missing something. Too bad Sherwood is running during Mother's Day, which is a Sunday. Oh, yes. Oh man. Right? Yeah, so we all just have to go to Sherwood, and I'm going drinking with Ala's mom. That's what I'm doing. I got 2 teenage boys. I deserve it. Okay, pull some cards for you. Oh, I'm using my deck. I got distracted because Pobogabobo has arrived from doing construction. He has shambled in the door behind the camera. Okay, let's pull a few cards for Bill. While we give Bill a second to answer that question, I believe the next season, your career, okay. I believe the next season of Nat 21 is going to be much more sort of gender balanced as far as characters, because Paulo's trying to make sure that he's bringing in the artists that are working where he's working, which will be Texas. But I know that some of the other core cast members are migrating to other things, so they'll still be on SideQuest or Gothic Core Gaming, so you can still hang out with the cool folks you've been hanging out with. Okay, let's see. What do you got for Bill? Oh, there's a little Vim there. Gonna get you a third card. Oh, there's a lot of heat in the cards, which, considering they'd been sitting on their own for a while, is interesting. The 5 of Wands, the 6 of Cups. Oh, and the Chariot. Huh, interesting. All right. So if you've been here the last few weeks, you will recognize some of these cards. So the 5 of Wands, the first thing that comes up there, wands, career, ambition, fire. The 5 particularly is about competition. So there's a real element in there of you may need to, or perhaps you are, like really stepping up and holding your own as far as all that goes. It is about letting the competition be the kind that lets you be your best, rather than letting yourself feel, broken down by it. So there's an element here of like, and this rooster is sort of in the forefront, is intended to indicate like, don't be afraid to strut your stuff and own your capabilities. That is different from putting other people down, but you definitely get to say, allow me to take ownership of all the things that I can do that are really great. That card can take a turn for the dark, but the rest of these cards are so damn peachy that I'm happy to say it looks good. The 6 of Cups. Cups is emotions. It's how you feel. It's how you're received. It's how you connect with others. And this card is very safe, comfortable. It is about feeling like you can... you can see again that they've sort of, it's like off the shoulder. They are very comfortable and unarmored. So yeah, it's like they are confident, they are secure, they are feeling emotionally safe, they are feeling connected to things that, yes, healthy competition. They're feeling connected to things that allow them to sort of feel, be, and act their best, because they're seeking conditions that will allow them to be emotionally healthy. That's how I'm going to put that Six of Cups. And the Chariot, that we were just talking about this card. The Chariot is the card of like you are ready to go. The Chariot is a card that suggests movement. It is a card that suggests if you're not already in motion, then all you need to do is get out of your own way. Like there's already a brick on the accelerator. You just have to take your foot off the brake. So putting these together with this question about how your career is progressing, I would say it looks like there is a lot of room here for you to grow, expand, move, to step into your best qualities and try to find the healthiest way to thrive on sort of a competitive edge without it creating any kind of like toxicity for you. Everything else about this is also sort of juicy and healthy and vivid. It looks good. Congratulations. I like that 5-6 Chariot progression. Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. If you're just getting here now, I am Madame Onça. I am the artist and the co-author of the World Spirit Tarot. And I am doing that thing I do on Wednesday nights where I teach a little bit about the cards for folks that want to learn and then read cards for people, either as my gift to you or by donation as you are able. I try to make sure that we have a good time and answer your questions and come together as a community to enjoy this thing that I just happen to know a lot about. I'd like to take a moment to thank once again Carmel Clavin of Spectacle and Mirth over there, your glamour hobo, and my StreamYard operator who's over there helping me so I can do this part. She's doing that part. Thank you. Also to Paula Garbanzo, who built this whole world for us to play in, but specifically also my credits and everything for my show segment. I'm very appreciative of that. For everybody who let me read cards for you tonight, thank you. Ooh, the only real competition is for hours. Nice. We have a whole slew of things that you can dial into on the Nat 21 channel. We'll pop the schedule up once more again at the end. And I guess we did that. So there's lots of stuff on this channel. So by all means, go watch that because I'm just grateful that Nat 21 gives me a place to be. I think that's about it for me. I look forward to seeing everybody this week round about the StreamYards, and I will see you next week right here on the same Nat channel. Good night. This is Madame Onça. Bye.